Federal Workforce Fallout is sponsored by Prince George's Community College.
You're watching Federal Workforce Fallout, where each week we break down the impacts to our neighbors in the federal workforce. I'm Larry Miller. This show is dedicated to the reduction of the federal workforce and the impact that it's having on workers, their families, and our local and national economy. We're providing context, fact-checking claims, and getting you advice from career experts over the next 30 minutes. Well, let's talk about that ongoing partial government shutdown that continues. It's been nearly a month and a half since Congress failed to pass funding for the Department of Homeland Security over issues with ICE and border control. And one of the hardest hit agencies from that shutdown has been TSA. We've seen more than 480 TSA officers quit since the shutdown began, and many more have been calling in sick, all resulting, as you see it there, incredibly long lines at airports across the country. President Trump has now signed a presidential memorandum to restore pay for TSA officers and employees who have continued to work without a paycheck. Meanwhile, in a 2-13 and 203 vote, the House passed legislation that will fund all of DHS for 60 days, but it's likely to face Democratic opposition. Carissa Lawson getting us up to speed.
The Republican-led House voted late Friday to fund the Department of Homeland Security, including Immigration and Customs Enforcement at current levels for 60 days.
But the message from House Republicans is clear. We will not and cannot fund only half of our Homeland Security.
We could end this shutdown for good tonight if Speaker Johnson would just put it on the floor.
That means the bill now returns to the Senate, which has left for a 2-week recess, meaning the fate of TSA and other Department of Homeland agencies remains up in the air, and so does air travel. From coast to coast, long security lines at U.S. airports continue. This comes as House Speaker Mike Johnson on Friday dashed hopes the partial shutdown could soon be over.
And it is unconscionable to me that the Democrats would force some sort of negotiation at 3 o'clock in the morning and try to hoist this upon the American people and then get on their jets and go home for their holiday.
Democratic lawmakers expressed frustration with House Republicans.
There's a bipartisan bill that emerged from the Senate with uniform support, and it should be brought to the floor immediately so we can pay TSA agents, so we can end the chaos.
Also frustrated, wary travelers.
It's an absolute nightmare. Never seen anything like this in my life.
President Trump signed a presidential memorandum to pay TSA officers using money from last year's spending bill. That means TSA agents could get checks as soon as Monday. Airport traffic is expected to continue to tick upward in the coming days as Easter approaches. Carissa Lawson, CBS News, New York.
Well, back here at home, we saw long lines getting through at TSA at BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport. Things got so bad that ICE agents were sent there to help at security checkpoints. While the DHS continues with this ongoing shutdown, TSA agents are understaffed. Passengers, no doubt, as you saw there, feeling the consequences as well. Melissa Kim speaking with many of those in line, braving the constant delays.
Now, we did see some of those ICE agents who were brought here to BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport to help ease some of these wait times, which, as you can see, for some people spans more than 4 hours. Some pleasantries from airport employees inside BWI, but in order to get there, you have to stand in this. Not as nice or warm for the kids impatiently waiting to start spring break.
Really boring.
It's been terrible. It was so long we had to go inside and warm up because it was windy.
Yeah, it's cold and long and really boring.
It's been long and just boring.
The Schwartz family's heading to LA. They thought they got here with enough time.
And everything said 3 hours. We were here 4 hours.
But after waiting in line outside for 2 hours and counting,
we did not give ourselves enough time, I will say.
At least it's warm in the airport.
The delays at BWI and airports nationwide continue as lawmakers on Capitol Hill struggle to get a bill on President Trump's desk. The president signed an executive order directing DHS to use its funds to pay TSA workers. DHS said TSA workers should see checks as early as Monday. As the shutdown drags on, the political attacks are ramping up as well. But the rhetoric on Capitol Hill hasn't improved the reality for flyers like Dr. Rhea Freeman from Prince George's County. She's taking her daughter Ayanna on her last spring break trip of high school. She came prepared and with a plan.
We got here 4 hours early because that's what Southwest told us to do. She got in line while I went to go check the bags, and we just got through one loop and it's been an hour.
But she's hoping for the best.
I'm patient because I expected it, but you know, it's frustrating for someone that pays a lot of money to get on a trip.
Now, many of the parents that we spoke to tell us they recommend that you get here more than 4 hours early, and more importantly, bring snacks for the kids. At BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport, I'm Melissa Kim, WUSA 9.
All right, so let's zero in on the TSA workers. It's been a tough go for them. Many of them struggling to pay for housing, food, everything else in between. Chris Van Cleve continues our coverage.
The long lines at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport over the last week have been driven by TSA officer sick calls. Yesterday, nearly 1 in every 4 screeners scheduled to work called out.
I have a total of $18 in one account, and I'm negative 100 and change on the other one.
Pascual Contreras, a TSA officer and union official, was one of them. On Monday, he says he ran out of gas money to pay for the 2-hour round-trip daily drive to work.
How am I supposed to provide a healthy, happy life for my children if I can't even afford to go to work? It doesn't feel good as a parent to look at your children and have them offer up whatever money they have so you can get to work, so you can buy food.
Contreras, an Army veteran, has 3 kids. His wife is also a TSA employee.
What's going on in your head at night?
I think what's going on in my head is, how am I going to do it? I don't want to fail the team. When I don't show up, I know I'm hurting the team. But how can I show up if I don't have the ability to?
But in the 42 days since the shutdown began, the price of gas in the Phoenix area has soared, up nearly $1.61 a gallon, at a time when he says his credit cards are maxed out as bills are piling up and more come due April 1st.
I have 4 days to come up with $1,700. That's not including the rent and the electricity.
But even with hope of a paycheck as soon as Monday, the hardship for the TSA officers may not be over. Contreras said it took several pay periods after the last shutdown for all of the officers to get all of the back pay they were owed. Still, the hope is, with the promise of a paycheck coming, some of these checkpoints across the country can start reopening, and some of those very long lines will get shorter next week. Chris Van Cleve, CBS News, Phoenix.
Let's take you to California now, where the stories of struggles continue there. Karina Vargas showing us how the community is stepping up to help TSA agents.
Just outside the San Diego International Airport, TSA families have been stopping by and picking up some food necessities. With officers still working without pay, many say it's getting harder to keep going.
Boxes of food were handed out to TSA officers. It's a small break during a tough time as they are expected to miss their second full paycheck because of the partial government shutdown.
All my saving that I put aside for other purpose had been used up. So that's frustrating because I will have to rebuild all the savings I had.
Some TSA officers like Julian tell me they're struggling to put food on the table. Their bills are piling up and they're being stretched thin with money.
Angers me. It's like I'm not able to pay the people that I depend on for the services that I need.
This is where Feeding San Diego is stepping up.
At least to be able to be here today and provide, shelf-stable items, fruits, vegetables for their families, it at least helps them have one less thing to worry about, so at least they know they have food on the table.
Earlier this week, I was there when volunteers packed up these boxes and filled them with pantry staples and fresh produce. TSA officers tell me they're grateful for the support.
And it always helps. I've been eating the vegetable. I cook at home, so I've been cooking all the vegetable I've received. It saved me one less trip at the grocery store.
Nationwide, more than 11% of TSA workers are calling out and hundreds have already quit. But for now, some TSA officers say they're sticking it out with the hopes of a paycheck coming soon.
And that was Karina Vargas reporting with that story. Let's take you now to Michigan. Similar story. TSA agents who are struggling, a community ready and active, stepping up to help. We continue our coverage right now with Christina Ford.
Lapse in funding to the Department of Homeland Security causing long lines, delays, and cancellations at airports across the U.S.
I know that a lot of people have been severely affected by this, and I feel really bad for all of them.
But what troubles Air Force veteran Ann Walsh most, unpaid TSA workers.
Could you imagine waking up in the morning and going, when do you think we're going to get a check?
Founder of nonprofit Downriver for Veterans says her phone has been ringing off the hook, and even during this interview. Calls from TSA workers missing paychecks, asking for help.
And if we don't help each other, nobody's going to do anything.
Downriver for Veterans is stepping in to do what they can.
I thought, you know what if it was us? What if it was veterans in that position and we weren't getting paid? We would be so thankful if somebody would step up and say, you guys aren't eating. You can't pay your rent. How about we're still got money? Let us take care of you. We're giving them milk and eggs and pork and chicken and hamburger, non-perishable food, toiletries, Easter baskets, and right now we're working on the gift cards.
But federal guidelines limit them to non-direct cash or gifts and small gift card limits of $20 or less. She knows it is not nearly enough as workers are used to.
$20 is $20. So I just want to thank everybody for helping us make a difference. Let's take care of them now and see what happens. Maybe somebody will decide to start paying them. Who knows?
And no doubt we are thankful for the organizations that have stepped up. That was Christina Ford reporting. Meantime, the Trump administration, now because things are so dire at airports, are sending more ICE agents to more than a dozen airports across the country to help with the TSA, the security checkpoints, as the partial government shutdown continues. Here's Skylar Henry.
From Houston to Chicago to Atlanta, federal immigration agents deployed to more than a dozen airports Monday to assist TSA officers who are working without pay during the partial government shutdown.
Their number one mission there, as the president said, is help TSA with security, help move the flow of people through those lines.
On Sunday alone, more than 11.5% of all TSA officers called out of work nationwide, the most since the shutdown began.
Some travelers welcomed ICE's help, while others say they're unhappy about it.
If it means shorter lines, then awesome. We appreciate the help.
It's not like they look friendly the way they're dressed. So I feel like that would be a lot more intimidating.
Immigration enforcement tactics, including the use of masks, is at the heart of the disagreement that led to the partial government shutdown. On Monday, President Trump said he told agents not to wear masks at the airports.
I didn't think it was an appropriate look for an airport. I think it's a very appropriate look when they're out on the street.
Democrats slammed the move to bring in ICE.
He's taking that agency that is reckless and out of control and bringing them to our airports, under the lie that somehow this is going to help deal with the long lines that he created in the first place. This is an outrage.
With no end in sight to the long lines at the airport, President Trump said he may call in the National Guard to join ICE if the shutdown continues. Skylar Henry, CBS News, Atlanta.
Well, not everybody is happy about seeing ICE agents patrolling airports around the country, particularly here at home. Our Jacqueline Quinn reports from BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport with their reaction.
The wait times that we have seen have ranged between 2 to 6 minutes for general boarding. As far as ICE agents, as discussed, they are supposed to be by the entrance here, and we have not seen them visibly. It's really just the people in blue. Those are TSA officers, and towards the back after the security checkpoint there, we don't see any ICE agents there either. But passengers we spoke with, some concerned about lines in other destinations, and not really putting blame on the people working without pay, but those in charge.
This is about going to helping TSA do their mission and get the American public through that airport as quick as they can. Well, while adhering to all the security guidelines and the protocols, we're simply there to help TSA do their job in areas that don't need their specialized expertise.
News that's starting today, ICE agents will back up TSA agents, has some passengers taken back.
Not in favor of that, but you know, surprisingly in Columbus, even though unfortunately the TSA agents weren't being paid, I was just amazed that they showed up to work anyway, so that was admirable.
For Robin and other travelers, the bigger concern is the people still showing up to do their jobs.
You still have to somehow make the mortgage, make the rent, make the car payment,
take care of child care, you've got to, put food on the table. And so it's never easy, and it seems to me as though the government is taking it out on the TSA officers.
And when it comes to the plan to bring in ICE agents, passengers have different opinions.
Bringing ICE in is a horrible idea.
I thought that was pretty cool that they could do that, bring the ICE agents in.
Now, Democrats, they want more limits and oversight on ICE, while Republicans oppose those changes. But that's why there's no deal. We're going to continue to track to see if there is a deal that will be worked out soon in the future. For now, at Baltimore-Washington International Airport, I'm Jacqueline Quinn, WSA 9.
Let's talk about the Department of Homeland Security. Kristi Noem is out. Oklahoma Senator Markwayne Mullin is in. Let's get the latest on this move from John Lornick.
Some progress in Washington, D.C.
On this vote, the ayes are 54, the nays are 45. The nomination of Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma to be Secretary of Homeland Security is confirmed.
The 48-year-old is taking over a department that hasn't been funded since February 14th.
Let's make it very clear. Donald Trump is the one standing in the way of paychecks for TSA workers.
But it appears some progress may be coming on that front as well. Top Republican senators met at the White House Monday night with a proposal aimed toward funding DHS, aside from a small section of the immigration enforcement budget, which analysts say appears to be a concession to Democratic lawmakers.
I'm not getting ahead of the president on what he wants to see in the end. No, he's talking to members of Congress on both sides, so I'll leave that final decision up to the president. But regardless of what happens in the next several days, I'm just going to keep doing the mission the president assigned me.
But until the stalemate is broken, ICE agents will be at several airports lending assistance to unpaid TSA employees.
I do say that I think they should just fund the Department of Homeland Security, pay those workers. They're here for a reason, to protect us every day, and I don't think ICE agents should really be up there just filling in the hole.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
It's been a little more than a year since the widespread firings of federal workers. USAID became a symbol of what the Trump administration called government access. Well, but behind the politics and the promises of efficiency were real people whose careers didn't change, but really were upended by all of this. Chief investigative reporter Eric Flack spoke with 3 of those former USAID workers, still reeling from the impact 1 year later.
Ann Dix spent more than 24 years with USAID Foreign Service.
One of the things that was offered at USAID was we went out to some of the hardest places to work and tried to bring hope.
USAID was the federal government's lead agency for foreign aid, funding programs in global health, disaster response, and economic development, a critical tool, many believed, of U.S. influence abroad. But critics pushing to cut government spending.
This is an order creating and implementing the Department of Governmental Efficiency, known as DOGE.
Okay, that's a big one.
Including President Trump and then Department of Government Efficiency head Elon Musk, argued the agency had become too costly and not accountable enough. The administration fired nearly all USAID workers.
To just see it treated like it was a bunch of trash and tossed out the window, it was very disappointing and sad.
And professionally, what do you do when your career is just ripped out from under you?
Exactly. What do you do?
Yes, I was shocked.
Bill Hall had no idea.
Yeah, of all the things I thought that could have happened to me, USA dissolving was not one of them.
Hall joined USAID after 4 years in the Peace Corps, The Economist eventually overseeing a $60 million development portfolio in Kazakhstan.
It was horrible. A foreign service officer it's a commitment, it's a lifestyle. I led with my job. I absolutely loved it, and that was gone.
He thought he would land on his feet quickly.
When it first happened, it was like, all right, no problem. I'm going to dust off my resume and get a job. And it didn't happen.
Instead, he took work where he could.
I worked for a guy, I met him at a bar. He was a guy who cleaned their beer lines. He was going to mentor me up, and I was going to kind of start my own business doing draft beer systems.
For Ann Dix, the transition has meant stepping away, now caring for her family after a career spent abroad.
Stunningly unbelievable. I can't believe that the United States could change its foreign policy so drastically overnight.
And what's our goal? Our goal is to find the area of...
And today, Bill Hall is teaching high school math.
The hypotenuse is what side?
Still trying to rebuild a sense of purpose and still waiting.
Perfect, that's good.
On a pension promised after his years of service at the State Department.
My pension's supposed to be like $7,000 or $8,000 a month. I mean, I had a great pension.
You're still waiting on that?
I haven't got a dime. If I didn't have my wife or this or that, I would have gone bankrupt.
A State Department spokesperson told WUSA 9 it has processed over 94% of the former agency's retirements. And they said while they cannot comment on specific cases due to privacy laws, they continue working to give the utmost attention to processing retirement cases of USAID after the agency ceased operations. And while Hall says he lost a career, he believes the U.S. has sacrificed much more.
I believe USAID was one of our instruments of national power. It made us more safer, more secure, more prosperous. I believe that very much. I'm sad that function is gone.
It's kind of like you're watching the decline of a great power. And it's sad. It really is sad to see that.
But the Trump administration pointed to a long list of alleged spending that fueled this backlash, citing USAID grants for a DEI musical in Ireland, a transgender opera in Colombia, among examples critics called wasteful and unaccountable spending. Defenders of the shutdown say those are the reasons the agency needed to go. Eric Fleck, WUSA 9.
Government watchdogs said that they also documented USAID funding going to organizations with ties to designated terrorist groups. USAID workers contended that any improper use of funding was extremely isolated. Well, as the partial government shutdown continues, a resource fair in Northern Virginia helped federal workers and contractors whose livelihoods have been disrupted. It was a partnership between the city of Alexandria, Arlington County, Fairfax County, and the city of Falls Church. Attendees had access to resources for housing and food assistance, small business support, and even resume assistance as well. Organizer, Democratic Congressman Don Byers says that the goal is to connect people with important help during this time of economic uncertainty. He says that many of the people who showed up were impacted by the federal layoffs last year.
This is the people who still need to land on their feet. We have nobody that's affected by the current DHS shutdown, which should be over, by the way. All we want for ICE is to do the same thing that every other U.S. law enforcement agency has done for 250 years. Just follow the law.
Byers says that he hopes the current shutdown will be resolved shortly. Coming up next week on federal workforce fallout, she said that she was proud of her career in federal service. It was part of her identity. So when she was fired last February, without warning, without hesitation, she said that she was thankful that the business that she was building outside of her 9-to-5 was the business that she was able to lean on when she was abruptly terminated. Meet Dr. Tamika Morrow.
I was prepared, actually. And it makes me sad to hear the sad stories. I actually went back and watched a few interviews, and it makes me sad to hear the story because we were so unprepared. The first time on Valentine's Day in 2025, when I was fired, no warning, just boom, you're fired. And it was a shock. I already was lined up in business and I had clients. So I was able to kind of up the ante on my business and let people know what happened. So people were supportive of my business and they knew what happened. So they were sending clients my way and business my way. But what is very saddening about what you said is about the people who are being affected by this. And I think it made me emotional because there are people who became homeless. There are people who lost their homes. There are people who lost their livelihood. And I'm just grateful to be on the other side, to have had a backup plan to where I took the DRP and I went full-time in business because I believed in myself and I believed in what I did and my capabilities. And thanks to the government for giving me my skills, and which most people don't do when they have a job. They don't take that on the outside and get paid for it. So I'm very grateful for having that knowledge to do that. So my story started in 2025, being fired, and then taking the DRP. April, I became a full-time business owner. Boom. I'm out there in the market. There have been times when it got really, really hard, and I was looking for a job because I'm like, okay, I have to pay employees, I have to maintain my lifestyle, and then I have 2 kids in college. So how is that going to work? when you're just depending on invoices to be paid and your faith. And so for me, it was like, okay, let me go and see what the job market is about. When I say I've never had a problem with finding a job or getting promoted or, being able to maneuver through the job market, this is the first time I've never got one phone call back, not even an email. So I can just imagine the other people who don't have a backup plan or who are not successful in business or anything to do after this thing happened. So that's where I'm at it. It's very sad, and I didn't even think I was going to get emotional, but it made me that way.
And you will see Dr. Morrow's interview next week right here on federal workforce fallout. Of course, you can count on us to stay on top of the reductions to the federal workforce, those affected, and what it means for our communities. In the meantime, scan the QR code on your screen. It will take you to a special section of WUSA9.com dedicated to our coverage of this story and others. And of course, we'll keep you updated right here on federal workforce fallout. We appreciate you being here. Take care, and we'll see you again soon.
You've learned a lot in life, on the job, in the military, raising a family. At Prince George's Community College, that experience can count as college credit. You could earn up to 15 college credits towards your degree just for what you already know. Eligible Prince George's County grads can even attend tuition-free with the Promise Scholarship. So, what's your game plan? Turn your journey into a degree at Prince George's Community College.